Hello and welcome to another episode of the African Football HQ podcast presented by Goal Africa. I'm Malek Shafei and I'm joined by Ed Dove once again, and we have a very exciting episode as we recap the winter transfer window. Ed, it was a really exciting window in my opinion. 4 of the top 5 biggest deals across the entire world were involved African players. So what were your thoughts on the transfer window?
Yeah, it wasn't really a very interesting window, perhaps from a neutral's point of view, from a non-African perspective. Deals were down, spending was down. I think we saw the impact, the consequences of coronavirus on clubs' finances. And it was more a case of teams focusing on getting players out the door rather than perhaps buying players in. But like you say, African players certainly caught the imagination with some big moves. And we're going to talk about some of the deals that we think are going to be success stories and some of the deals which maybe are less destined to succeed.
You're always a pessimist, Ed, bringing up the negatives.
Balance. Trying to be balanced about this. All
right. So who's your first selection?
So this is the one that I'm kind of really excited about. And anyone who's been following my writing will see that I'm a big fan of this player. He's a bit of a cult favourite of mine. And it is Jean-Michel Serry of Ivory Coast. He's returning to French football on loan from Fulham to Girondins de Bordeaux, ending 18 months out of French football in the wilderness in England and last season spent in Turkey. And this is a guy who has massively lost his way, a really immense talent. He's still 29, so in his prime. And I'm just really hoping he can rediscover some of his lost form, some of his lost quality back in France.
You have some infatuation with average Ivorian centre midfielders. I don't really get it.
Jean-Michel Serry is absolutely not an average player. I've got to stop you there. This man is anything but average.
He's getting loaned out of Fulham.
In the summer of 2017, he was on the brink of moving to Barcelona. Terms had been agreed. A fee had initially been agreed, only for Nice to renege on the deal. It is one of those sliding doors moments that just gives us a glimpse of what an alternative future could have looked like had Nice stuck to their word and allowed Serry to go to Barcelona. Instead, he stayed on the French Riviera. He remained at Nice for another season. A year later, with his stock somewhat lower, he moved on to Fulham. This is a guy in the 2016-17 season who scored 9. He got 7 assists, inspiring Nice to the Champions League, 3rd place. Unheard of, unprecedented. And we certainly can't say he is an average player.
At this point, though, you're bringing up performances from 3+ years ago. This season or in the past 18 months, what have you seen from him that makes you excited about him as a player?
Well, very little, but I don't think that's because Serry is a poor player. I think the move to Fulham, as I wrote at the time, if you were reading my pieces at the time, a move to Fulham I thought was a really poor idea. I kind of saw the logic about Fulham needing a guy who could control the play as they were newly promoted, a guy who could help them retain possession. But I think at 5'8", maybe 5'9", I think it was always going to be a massive ask for Serry to step up to a Premier League struggler from Liga. Maybe we've seen similar difficulties for Nakamba at Aston Villa, someone who in Belgium was just controlling games, has moved to England and has found it much harder. You need regular game time. You need to stay fit. You need to have the ball for starters, which is something Fulham didn't have so readily during that first season. Bad move, quality player. I just want to see him getting back to action.
All right. I'm going to go with a very exciting player, Mustafa Mohammed. He made arguably one of the biggest jumps in this transfer window, going from Zamalek in Egypt to Galatasaray in Turkey. When you see a player go from the Egyptian league to some foreign league, it's usually to a mid-tabled side or a relegation battler, but never to one of the biggest clubs in the country like Galatasaray are. So aside from the stature of the club and the great players they have, he'll be linking up with Radmel Falcao and so many other great players. He is one of the most exciting prospects Egyptian football has had in the past 10 years, in my opinion. You can look at Mohamed Salah, other players, but Mustafa Mohammed, consistent performances in the league, in continental competitions. Haven't seen enough of them with the national team. But at Galatasaray, we'll be able to see if he is really the big deal. So in terms of potential and how this could shoot his career up, I'm really excited.
I can see the same kind of glee in your face that you show when we're talking about Mohamed El Neni. I think you might have a new favourite player at this rate. 2 questions for you. One, how has this one been received in Egypt? How have fans back home got excited about the move? And secondly, obviously, it's a massive step up, even though the Turkish league perhaps isn't what it was still to move from the Egyptian Premier League to the Super League. Do you think he will be able to make that step up?
Well, to answer your first question, some fans are excited. If you're a neutral, non-Zamalek fan, you're excited to see one of the national team's best players get a move to a huge club where he'll be able to play in the Champions League and hopefully make a move to a bigger club. But there has been a lot of drama with the move. Zamalek did not want to sell him. And for that reason, some Zamalek fans will probably be a bit bitter that he left. Zamalek were holding off with Saint Etienne, Galatasaray, and numerous other clubs, including Rangers previously. They were never able to reach a transfer agreement until finally they got a loan deal where Galatasaray will have the option to purchase him further. But even when they came to that agreement and Mohamed was at the airport ready to board to Istanbul, reports came out that Zamalek were trying to pull the card that he didn't complete his military service. This is an issue which is unique to Egyptian football, Ed, because you don't see this in many other countries for one, but the fact that it happened as he was about to board to Istanbul makes it very Egyptian. Thankfully, that report was not entirely credible. They said that he completed it already. So he is able to move, and he did score on his debut, netting a 90th minute penalty for Galatasaray.
Yeah, a good starting point. And he will link up with Henry Onyekuru at Galatasaray, although I think I'm led to believe that you're perhaps not as excited about the Onyekuru transfer. We can come to that one a little bit later. For my numbers 2 and 3 picks, I'm going to focus on Ajax, who have played an absolute blinder in the January transfer window. And I think they also excelled back in the summer when they signed Ghana's Mohamed Kudus from Danish football. He settled quickly, but he's had some injury problems, so we haven't really seen the best of what he's capable of. But certainly in January, their decisions to sign Sebastian Haller from West Ham United and to bring Idrissi back to the Eredivisie from Sevilla, I think are 2 outstanding pieces of business. Ajax are already comfortably ahead in the Eredivisie, and I expect both of those 2 players to be Dutch champions before the season is out.
I don't want to be too negative, but both of these players are coming to Ajax in the back of relatively poor stints with the club. Haller at West Ham didn't have a great season since joining from Frankfurt, and Idrissi only spent 6 months at Sevilla, I believe. So not great stints from either of them. Haller at least has been performing well at Ajax, but is it right? Like, it seems like they're coming on a bit of a downturn in their careers, maybe moving to a weaker league. Do you agree?
Yeah, I think there's some truth in that. I think Idrissi, first of all, he's been at Sevilla only for 4 months, having signed from AZ Alkmaar in October. He was injured for 2 of those months, and he's only played, I think, 24 minutes across 3 substitute appearances in La Liga. So far, it's been a disastrous signing, but there's still time for him to turn things around in Sevilla. He needs to get fit. But last season in Eredivisie, he scored 13 goals from wide areas. I think as an impact sub, as someone who can step into that first team, I think that's a fantastic addition, especially on loan. Haller's interesting. Yeah, I mean, I've kind of been
mainly for the fact that he wasn't African until a few months ago. So he's a new player on many of our radars.
He's been on my radar for a long time, and I think that combination. I have one of my kind of football theories, which I'm going to write a piece about or a paper about, which I haven't quite perfectly articulated an article yet. Is this idea of these physical forwards who are lauded for their physical qualities in certain European leagues, and who come to England, and those same qualities that brought them to England are things which don't stand out in the same way in England, which means that they are assessed and judged and criticised on slightly unfair but actually quite fair terms when they move to the Premier League. And Haller would be a classic example of that. Looking at him in German football, he was an aggressive, powerful, athletic target man. Coming to England, while you could see what the thinking was, we just didn't see those qualities married together to a good enough level to make him a success. The same with maybe Steve Mounier, who was at Huddersfield Town after being in French football with Montpellier. That's another example off the top of my head of someone who of whom a similar kind of phenomenon happened. And yeah, Haller, 3 goals for West Ham so far this season. They've made a big loss on him, selling him to Ajax for 25 million euros. But he already has 6 goals. He's had a hand in 6 goals, scored 2, 4 assists in his first 4 appearances for Ajax. And he's really hit the ground running there.
I don't know what to make of these Ajax performances. We saw Lassina Traore score 5 goals in 1 game. I don't know what to make of someone scoring well for Ajax, but I'm hoping for the best for him and also for the Ivorian national team, for that matter.
Well, he's 26. I think things didn't exactly work out at West Ham, but I think the qualities are there. And a reunion with Erik ten Hag, who is his manager at Utrecht, the guy who got the best out of him in Dutch football previously, I think will hopefully work wonders for both men. And you never know, at 28, perhaps we'll see Haller making a move back into Europe's big five leagues.
I doubt it. Someone who could move into Europe's top five leagues in the future is Nigerian winger Bright Osai-Samuel, who moved to Turkish giants Fenerbahce from Queen's Park Rangers just a few days ago. I wrote a piece about him. He's a very exciting player. In my opinion, he was one of the most exciting players in the championship. And Fenerbahce have done an absolute steal, getting him on a near free transfer. He's young, he's talented, he's a very flashy player, but he's also very practical. We don't see that from a lot of wingers, especially being right-footed on the right wing. He already got an assist in his second game. He's off to a great start. But in terms of these Anglo-Nigerians, we talk about them a lot. He is someone who doesn't get a lot of credit. He is committed to play for Nigeria. I don't know what his route to the Super Eagles team will be, considering maybe if he is able to replace Chukwueze or someone else. But in the Turkish league, I believe he has a very good setup. I'm not a fan of, players moving to necessarily weaker leagues, but he will be at one of the biggest clubs in arguably the world in Fenerbahce. He'll have the chance to play for European competition, but most importantly, he can make a name for himself in Turkey. He can become a fan favorite like Henry Onyekuru has, but also it's a great launching pad for him to make a future move. His QPR manager said he's destined for the Premier League. It hasn't happened just yet, but I think this stint at Fenerbahce will make when he comes to the Premier League even better.
Very intrigued that you're getting very excited about all these players moving to the Turkish Super League, but you're saying that we can't celebrate players moving to the Eredivisie because it's a lesser league. I find that quite an interesting little double standard there, Malek. But listen,
it's all the Ozil talk. It has me in love with Turkey.
Oh, for goodness sake. It was just great to see a Nigerian player completely eclipsing Ozil's move to Fenerbahce, to be honest. I found it very tasteless that while still under Arsenal's employ, he was flying to Fenerbahce in a plane seemingly full to the brim of Fenerbahce flags. But listen, hopefully Osei-Samuel will be a success there. I think Fenerbahce, moving to Fenerbahce, signing for Fenerbahce, as with signing for Galatasaray, will test players in ways that they're perhaps unlikely to be tested at other clubs who don't have the same expectations. And hopefully, if and when he does return to England, when he makes his step into the Super Eagles team, I think that's a matter of when, not if. I really hope that he will be much stronger from this experience.
I saw on your list before the show that you had him as one of the duds of the transfer window. Can you reveal why?
I just wonder where the Turkish Super League is a bit of it's the place where players go kind of at the end of their careers these days. You've got, if you look at players there who have moved from English football, you're looking at guys like Steven Kolka, guys like Aaron Lennon, guys like Feghouli.
You have to admit it's a step up from the Championship.
No, I don't think that's
really?
True. I think the strongest teams in Super League, yes, but I don't think the mid and lower teams in the Super League are a notch above certainly the spending isn't there, the wage bills aren't there, and the infrastructure is not there in the same way that it is in the Championship at all.
Okay, I don't want to use up any arguments that would backfire against myself for Onyekuru, so I think we should stop here. For the final transfer I'm excited about, it's not for footballing reasons necessarily. Marseille signed Olivier Ntcham, Cameroonian midfielder from Celtic. Apparently, Andre Villas-Boas, the Marseille coach, was not made aware of this at all, and he reportedly voiced his displeasure with the signing publicly. And this has caused a lot of issues with Marseille and his potential future with the club. But I was wondering, how could this happen? You would assume that a manager would at least be in the know somewhat. But even if not, Olivier Ntcham is a great player, isn't he, Ed?
Yeah, I mean, it's not that rare, I think, that you have managers who are somewhat disgruntled by what they want, what they get in the transfer market versus what they wanted. You maybe have a difference of opinion between sporting directors, heads of recruitment and managers. Plus, AVB's contract, I think, is coming to an end this summer. And as has been publicised this week, there's kind of a sense of unhappiness at Marseille about his performance. So maybe the club might think, well, Ncham is a player who could be a good punt for Marseille in the future, even if AVB doesn't want him. But from a manager's point of view, if you've been desperate to spend money on a centre-back, for example, and you end up getting a central midfielder, I can understand why a head coach who is under pressure anyway would be a bit unhappy about that.
But in the event that he ends up losing his job over this, have we ever seen a manager quit over just one player? And it's not like he was supposed to be signed as a star player. He's just a role player.
Well, managers tend to be happy. I think people are focusing on the fact that he's unhappy because Ncham has come. But maybe he's unhappy. It's either unhappy about what he hasn't got or unhappy about the principle of someone going ahead and above his head and making decisions for him. So I think it's kind of this narrative has been drawn that AVB has handed in his resignation because Ncham has been signed. I think that's a bit of a kind of a muddying of the situation, really.
Okay. Do you think his Marseille career is all...
deflates the drama of the situation, but I think the headline that kind of... My brother even said the same thing. He was like, what's Ncham ever done to AVB to make him want to quit? And I'm kind of thinking it's not... I'm sure he doesn't have a personal problem with Olivier Ncham. I'm sure he just was desperate for a right winger and has been begging the board for it and has ended up with a central midfielder. Or perhaps this is just a smokescreen. I mean, AVB is quite a savvy operator. He's under pressure. Results aren't necessarily going his way. The fans are literally tearing up the training ground. His contract's coming to an end this summer. And maybe a kind of a forced bringing things to a head is maybe his way of an escape route.
Given that the first 12 hours of his Marseille career didn't exactly go to plan, do you think his time in France will be as bad as the beginning was?
Well, if AVB's if the Marseille fans have fallen out of love with AVB and Ncham's arrival is the trigger to get rid of an unpopular manager, then maybe he'll already become a cult hero at the Stade Velodrome before he's even kicked the ball. I think Ncham is, in all seriousness, I think Ncham is a very good player. He's only 24. He's already a 3-time Scottish champion. I would have liked to have seen him gone to Newcastle, who were linked with his signature. He's been a bit out of favour this season, and my concern would be that has he stagnated perhaps in Scotland? I think Scotland is maybe, I can understand why someone would stay there 2 seasons and move on. But I just hope that he can, at 24, pick up the rigours that will be demanded of him at Marseille.
All right. We'll now move on to our next section where we discuss some of the duds of the transfer window, regardless of how negatively we might have been talking about some of the positive transfers. Ed, who is the transfer you are least excited for?
Well, there are a few that have kind of not got me excited as some of the others. We're not going to go too much in depth talking about Michael Olunga because I know you've got Seth Willis from goal, Kenyan, who's going to come on a little bit later on the podcast and talk about Olunga. And I'm sure Seth will be very excited about Olunga's move. I'm personally a little bit disappointed about that one because I think Olunga at 26, he's someone who's already tried his hand in a major European league, in La Liga, scored goals in Spain, then ended up going to Japan, has now gone to the Middle East.
Top scorer in Japan. Don't forget that.
Yeah, top scorer in Japan. And he's someone who, in terms of his physique, in terms of his track record, I think in terms of the way he shoulders responsibility, is someone who I would have liked to have seen move to Europe, to have really tested himself at that higher level. I think him now moving to Al Duhail is a sign, I guess, that this is going to be a player who we perhaps never again see playing at that high level. So for me, it's a little bit of a disappointment, yeah. That's
fair. I'm going to go with Henry Onyekuru. We mentioned him before, but this is his third loan stint at Galatasaray. He wasn't able to get a game at Everton due to work permit issues, struggling at Monaco, and so he's now on loan at Galatasaray for the third time, and he's gotten off to a great start. He has 3 goals in his first 2 games, but Ed, I just feel like he should be aiming higher. He was expected to be one of Africa's best young talents, you know? And now we're seeing him kind of almost settle for Turkey.
You must be the only person in the world who would call a guy who scored 2 goals on his debut a 45-minute cameo as a transfer dud. And I'm also intrigued how you're kind of praising Osayi Samuel for moving to Turkey, but at the same time, criticizing Onyekuru for doing that very same thing.
I think it's a move up for Osai Samuel, but for Onyekuru, I would expect him to continue to move up, but this is stagnation.
What evidence have we seen from Onyekuru in a major European league to suggest that he is of that level? He couldn't even get in a team anymore at Monaco. I think he'd had 1 assist all season. How could you convince a team who are better than Monaco or equal to Monaco that he could be a guy who's going to make a difference for them?
Well, I think what most young players in that situation do, they move to one of the worst clubs in the league. So maybe if we were to see him at a mid-table or relegation battling Ligue 1 side, that probably would have given him a lot more experience that would suit him more for Monaco than playing at Galatasaray.
I don't know. I think a guy like Onyekuru may be a bit short on confidence, a bit short of match fitness. The opportunity to go somewhere where he knows, somewhere where he's known, somewhere where the setup's familiar to him, where teammates' playing style, approach are familiar to him, somewhere where, as he's demonstrated, he's hit the ground running. He clearly thrives in the Super League. Maybe exactly what he needs right now is a bit of a reset, a bit of a reboot at a club where he's familiar. And Galatasaray aren't exactly minnows. He's not exactly dropped down to the 4th division to try and get some playing time. He's arguably playing at an even bigger club than Monaco, to be honest.
He could stay at Galatasaray for the rest of his career, become a club legend, and that would be all great. But given the expectations we had of him as a youngster, surely you would expect him to be playing in the top 5 leagues.
Yeah, but maybe he needs...
So what do you think is next after this season? Do you expect him...
Onyekuru is coming from a position where he's not playing at all. It's not like he's thriving at Queen's Park Rangers and he's ready for that next move up. His next move was either down or sideways. And even if he's gone down in terms of league, he's gone sideways or maybe even upwards in terms of club. And so therefore, if you want him to see him move to a Fiorentina or a Saint Etienne or a team like that next, I think the perfect way of him getting there is a big 12 months in Galatasaray, scoring goals at the kind of rate he was in Belgium or previously in Turkey, and then convincing a team that he can be given another chance in a major European league.
Do you see him playing for the Super Eagles anytime soon?
I get the impression that Gernot Rohr hasn't figured out how to get the best of Onyekuru. Onyekuru is someone who I think Onyekuru is brilliant, by the way. And I should make that very clear. I think he's a really excellent player. And I think it's a bit of a blind spot by Rohr that he hasn't necessarily found the best way of getting the most out of him. Partly, I wonder if Onyekuru is a victim of versatility. So it's kind of not always clear whether even Ajax played him as a wing back during his loan stint there. But I think if he's playing at Galatasaray, scoring goals in a specific position, then hopefully Gernot Rohr will find a place for him. I'd certainly have him in. I'd have him in there ahead of Iwobi and ahead of Chukwueze, to be honest.
Ahead of Osai Samuel too?
I think Onyekuru at his best over the last 3 years, maybe even a bit longer now, when he was kind of tearing it up at Eupen. But even if you take Onyekuru from what we saw of him at Galatasaray last time around, I don't think too many of those other Nigerian wide men have shown that level of performance across an 8-month period, say.
All right. Who's your next transfer dud?
Well, my second dud, and I'm not going to stick the knife into too many players, so I've only gone for kind of 2 transfers that I'm concerned about, is Kelechi Nwakali, who has left Huesca in La Liga to move back down to the Segunda with Alcorcon. He was a player who did for great things, previously on the books of Arsenal, on the books of FC Porto, was the superstar of the Under-17 World Cup in 2015. And I really thought that maybe kind of the role of a midfield general at Huesca, a kind of a lesser La Liga team, would be a natural next step for him. But it seems that even he's failed to convince management there of his worth. He moves back down to Segunda. It's a sad indictment of where he is. It's a hard one to get excited about, of a player who, was tipped for the top. And I'm just kind of worried about, even if we talked about Onyekuru. If Onyekuru does really well, I can see a Fiorentina or a Saint Etienne or a mid-table top 5 league team coming in for him. If Nwakali does well at Alcorcon, what does it really prove? Because I'm just worried that he'll go back to La Liga again and the same thing will happen.
Is he Africa's greatest failed wonder kid, Ed?
No, I think they're a greater, if that's the right or wrong choice of word. But I think that's the subject for another episode, to be honest.
All right. On to my final transfer,
He's
Dud.
still a young man. He's still a young man. Sorry, he's still a young man. I don't write him off. I just don't know if moving to Al Corcon is really.
Well, you can only go up from here, Ed.
He can't though, because we've seen Macaulay Chrysanthus, and we've seen other wonder kids who you find even Dominic Adia of Ghana, and he's kind of they're 26 and they're playing in Thailand, and I'm worried. I'm really worried.
Okay. On to my final transfer, Dud. This one's a bit of an interesting one. Walter Braulia, the Egyptian Premier League top scorer from last season, Zambian Congolese, he moved from El Gouna to champions El Ahly. You would assume this would make sense. The biggest club, they buy one of the best players from a worse team. It should make sense, but Ahly don't need him, and they're not really going to play him too often. So for that reason, I'm a bit concerned by that transfer. El Ahly already has Marwan Mohsin. They signed Tahir Mohamed recently, and they have a plethora of strikers. So they didn't really need him. I feel like this is more of a case of getting him so Zamalek couldn't get him. Zamalek, obviously, they just lost Mustafa Mohammed, like we talked about earlier. It would have made a lot of sense for them to go for a player like Braulia, but now they will have to look elsewhere. But unfortunately for Braulia, he's the one who's probably going to lose out because while he might be getting more money, actually his career will most likely stagnate due to the lack of game time. All right, that concludes this section. We're now going to move on to a little highlight on the Premier League relegation battlers. Fulham and West Brom both signed African strikers, who they're hoping will take them out of the danger zone and lead them to Premier League safety. West Brom signed Senegalese striker Mbaye Diagne on loan from Galatasaray, who Mustafa Mohammed is replacing, while Fulham have signed Josh Maja on loan from Bordeaux. Ed, what are your thoughts on these transfers?
I think Diagne is a coup. I think it could be the perfect kind of addition for the Baggies. They needed a goal threat. I think overall Sam Allardyce has overseen a really promising window. I don't know if it's enough to get them safe, but I think he's given them a good shot of survival. It wasn't that long ago that Diagne scored 30 goals in a single Super League season with Kasim Pasa and then with Galatasaray. So if he can come close to replicating that kind of form, or even just getting himself about and a goal, I think he could be a really good addition. Less excited about Maja. I just think that very talented player, but I would have liked to have seen him at Bordeaux for a little bit longer. And when he did return, I just don't know if joining a team in a relegation battle is the best move for him. Plus, he wasn't Fulham's plan A. They looked at a few other players, Josh King, Spezias, and Zola. And I understand that Maja was the third option there. So it makes Fulham quite an interesting watch from a Nigerian point of view. They've got, I think, 4 Nigerian players now. But I don't know.
Adebayo, Ola Aina, Lookman, and now Maja.
Yes.
That's great stuff.
Yeah, great stuff. They should be the neutrals' choice for Super Eagles fans, I think. But
they need to get a green third kit.
Yeah, like Wolves have done with that Portugal. Yeah. But I don't know if it'll be enough to keep them safe. We'll have to see.
He's had a very interesting rise. You kind of want to keep your eyes on him. Just a few years ago, he was playing in the reserves for a third division team in Sunderland. He rose to the first team, then went from the third division in England to Ligue 1. And I think this would be a great next step in his career if it is able to work well. You seem to have some concerns about that, but well, to be fair, also a lot of African transfers to Fulham don't end up turning out too well. But I'm hoping he can continue his great form and hopefully stay in the Premier League for longer.
Well, I think Fulham either needed a proven Premier League commodity or a player who's really going to hit the ground running. So Josh King
has the potential to do that.
He scored 2 goals in Ligue 1 for Bordeaux this season. So while he has the potential to do that, he's neither someone with a Premier League track record, nor is he someone who's kind of in red hot form. So one for the future, sure. I think they're only buying him on loan, so it's a short-term deal. And I don't necessarily see that he's going to be someone who comes in and makes an instant impact. I hope I'm wrong, and I'm really excited about how Park is getting something out of Lookman. I hope I'm proved wrong.
We'll now conclude our transfer section by looking at some of the African players who did not get a move like we might have thought they needed to. So, Ed, who are your picks for this section?
I'm going to split this into 3 categories. I think, first of all, we've got guys who really needed a move and didn't get one. So I'm thinking of Christian Atsu of Newcastle, Henri Saivet of Newcastle, both out of the first team picture, not getting game time. desperately in need of playing time, and it's just not going to happen now. Then I'm looking at someone like Mbala and Zola, who I think could have been a great time for him to have moved to Fulham. He scored 9 goals in 13 games in Serie A with Spezia, Angolan, destined for greater things, I'm sure. And it would have been great if they could have agreed terms to see whether he could have adapted to England. And then finally, I think there are a few players who I think a transfer is in the horizon for them, but it's just been moved back to likely to the summer or maybe beyond, due to perhaps clubs' lack of spending power. Guys like Bissouma, linked with some of Premier League Europe's biggest clubs. Tariq Lamptey of Brighton, another one who we talked about potentially making a move. Atletico Madrid, he ends up staying at Brighton. And Nesri as well. Until recently was top scorer in La Liga with 12 goals, equal with Lionel Messi, behind now only Luis Suarez on 14 goals. He was linked to West Ham United. That one hasn't happened. It is something I think that could happen in the future. He's only been at Sevilla for a year.
West Ham reportedly made a 40 million bid for him, which I find shocking.
Yeah, well, it's quite shocking as well that West Ham haven't bought another striker, because they looked at Boulaye Dia as well and Nesri, and they've ended up with
as well as Patson Daka. They were linked to 3 African strikers and they got 0.
And they've ended up with just Antonio for the rest of the season. You think it's shocking that they were bidding that much?
I can't say he's worth that much, Ed, is he? He's had a decent string so far, but I don't think he's a 40 million pound player.
No, but we talked a lot about Osimhen, who scored 13 goals in the whole of Ligue 1 last season.
I've told you many times I don't think he's worth that much.
I know, but if that sets the precedent, that sets the benchmark for what strikers who can score that many goals are worth today. And
potentially. So, I think with a lot of the players you mentioned, we'll see them make a move this summer. And if En-Nesyri is able to keep up that good form, maybe that fee will rise up to 50 or 60 million.
And finally, also the blockbusters. So Zaha and Koulibaly, both of whom we've talked about for windows and windows as being primed for a move. I think COVID has
just
come up. No, Koulibaly's been linked with a move away from Napoli.
No, us.
Oh, yeah. Well, no, I've been talking about just on my own for many windows. I think had it not been for coronavirus, I think these two probably would have moved by now. But they are the two players who, I think, because age-wise, the 2 African players who have been most disadvantaged by coronavirus coming. Because I think the natural window for them to have got the move, which was maybe last summer, just ended up not happening. And it'll be interesting to see now whether they remain at Napoli and Crystal Palace, respectively.
We'll now move on to our East African section, where I talked with Goal.com's Kenyan correspondent, Seth Willis. He talked to us about Kenya's huge Mashemeji derby this weekend between Gor Mahia and AFC Leopards, Uganda's disappointing Chan performances, as well as Michael Olunga's surprising transfer to El Duhail. Was it a good move? Was it a bad move? Listen to see. We are now joined by Goal Africa's Kenyan correspondent, Seth Willis, who is in Nairobi right now to talk to us about this weekend's Mashemeji derby, one of East Africa's largest fixtures between Kenyan giants Gor Mahia and AFC Leopards. Thank you for coming on, Seth. I want you to talk to me about what this fixture means to the Kenyan people.
Okay, not only about Kenyan people, but East Africa, because it is one of the biggest derbies, actually. As remember, we have the Kariakoo derby of Tanzania, and now we have the Mashemeji derby. And everybody wants to be associated with a winning team, and in this case, AFC Leopards and Gor Mahia, because we're talking about the 2 teams that have been there for the longest time possible. You cannot talk about the Kenyan football without talking about the 2 teams. So it is a match everybody is anticipating, looking forward to, hoping that they'll give the entertainment that is being anticipated by everybody, especially in this region.
What are the people in Kenya saying? Because in recent years, it's been dominated by Gor Mahia, hasn't it?
Yeah, surely it has been dominated by Gor Mahia, because if you look at the last 9 games, Gor Mahia have won 8 of them. And the last win for AFC Leopards came way back in 2016. I remember Lamine Diallo scoring the lone goal. And looking at what the people are saying, especially the AFC Leopards fan, they are confident that finally they'll get something over their rivals Gor Mahia, because looking at the team, the players, there's been some sort of consistency as compared to Gor Mahia, starting from the technical bench, as I said, the playing unit, and also looking at Gor Mahia, they did not start the season well. Remember, they did not have a coach. They went on, signed Robertinho, who was later released because of not meeting the credentials, as a supporter was put out by CAF and he was let go. And then we had also Samuel Molo stepping in temporarily to help the team in the CAF assignments. We had also Patrick Odhiambo. So if you look at this aspect, the one that I've talked about, and comparing to what AFC Leopards have been doing, and also about the players, because Gor Mahia signed 17 players, I think the fans feel that this is the time to break the Gor Mahia jinx.
So Gor Mahia, they've been struggling a bit this season. They were embarrassed in the CAF competitions. They haven't been playing too well in the league, and as you said, there's been a lot of chaos within the team with changing managers, new players coming in. Do you think the state of the derby right now, is Leopards a stronger team, or is it that Gor Mahia is just weaker?
Well, if you look at the last two matches they have played, they played against Bandari, managed to get a 3-1 win. And then also, remember, they played against Kariobangi Sharks. They played against Zoo FC and got a win. If you look at Gor Mahia in the attacking aspect, from the attacking aspect, they look stronger. But looking at their defensive department, they are weak. And many believe the fans also, they've just signed former captain Harun Shakava. So they feel that if Shakava gets a chance to play on Sunday, then definitely Gor Mahia will be strong at the back. And looking at AFC Leopards, they have the informed striker Elvis Rupia. He has scored so far 10 goals, and actually many feel like he's in the form of his life. And also looking at the midfield, looking at the defense, also talk about them conceding only 9 goals. They have the third best defense in the competition right now. So if you look at those aspects, many feel that AFC Leopards is more balanced. Yes, Gor Mahia are slowly building, they're slowly coming up, but AFC Leopards have an edge as compared to their rivals.
One of the biggest moves in the transfer window for East African fans was the transfer of Michael Olunga from Japanese football to Qatari football when he moved to El Duhail. This move surprised a lot of people because despite him being one of the most prolific goal scorers in Asian football in the past 2 seasons, you would have expected him to move to a bigger club, wouldn't you, Seth?
Well, many people are looking at them, they've criticized the move, but we had like the likes of Kenyan legend Dennis Oliech, who felt that it was a good move. And it was the same case. It reminds me again when he moved from, remember, was sometimes playing at Girona on loan. And from there, that is when he went to Kashiwa Reysol in Japan. And also others felt that maybe he could have moved to Europe. But what did he do there? The quality of Japan was good. He has ended up actually proving that he has what it takes actually to become one of the top players. For example, last season, remember, he ended up winning the MVP, the first African to do so. Remember, initially he had been linked to a move to Bundesliga. Others felt that, yes, it was time for him to move to the English Premier League. But again, I think Olunga was motivated by monetary gains, because looking at his age, and then he's not getting the offers that maybe he had expected. And then also Aldo Hail come. See, he had to make a wise decision. And I don't think that it was a bad move per se, because Qatar also in recent years, they have been doing well. They've been going for players who have left a mark in Europe. The likes of Iniesta, they're playing there. We also have Santi Cazorla who is also playing there. And looking also at this club, the team that is currently playing for Al Duhail, it's a team that is ambitious. Looking at the way their football, I think it is a good move for him, and it will not get anything out of him, despite the fact that many Kenyans would have loved to see him playing maybe in Europe or even Bundesliga in England. Sorry.
Al Duhail, they're one of the richest teams in Asian football. They've made some record signings, and with the addition of Olunga, he'll be the centerpiece of this supposedly all-Asian attack, an attack that is supposed to lead them towards the AFC Champions League title. We'll now move on to the Uganda national team. They crashed out of the CHAN tournament once again in the group stage after 5 successive qualifications, but they're yet to advance past the first round. What is going wrong for them, Seth?
It is something that I did not see coming, considering the preparations that they had. Remember, they played in pre-CHAN. They went on, actually played a 1-1 draw with Indomitable Lions. And remember, they played a long period with 10 men. Yes, and also they defeated Zambia 2-0, went on to defeat Niger 3-0. So I expected them to perform better. And remember also McKinstry, Jonathan, had also been given 90% of what he had asked for, that is to prepare for the tournament. But I think pressure caught up with them, especially against Rwanda. Against Rwanda, I think they underrated the Rwandese, and then they went on, paid the price. And then against Togo now, that pressure was building. You could see even the way they were playing, the trademark long shots were not there. They used the long balls, and eventually they lost the game. And against Morocco, they were trying to overwork themselves. They knew that they wanted to win, and you could see they were nervous. It was a disappointing and an embarrassing outing.
Who do you think the blame should be on? Is it the coach? You said he got most of what he wanted. Is it the players? Is it the administrators? What went wrong?
First I will blame FUFA. I think they just decided, they made a hurried decision to release Fred Kajoba from the team. Why am I saying so? Because Kajoba's been with Uganda Cranes for 10 years. He has been with those defenders. He has been with the goalkeeper. And there is something, we're talking about that technical aspect. He knew what to expect from, he knew how to handle these players. He knew what to employ, what to give these players. And then with 2-3 weeks remaining, what do? You decide to release them. You decide to release the goalkeeping coach, and now bring someone who is employing new ideas to this team. I have never seen a shambolic defense like the one that I saw for Uganda. The South Sudan, they were solid, even if they conceded that goal. But in Cameroon, there was a problem. And then also another thing, it was in attack. It seems like Kinstu was not sure with who's to start and who not to start. For example, the first match, we saw him bringing Brian Ahebwa. That is after his preferred choice got injured. And Ahebwa did a wonderful, but actually it had already messed the pattern of the game. So I think the coach had some problems, and also FUFA are equally to blame.
So what are the next steps? Do you think McKinstry should be given some more time to try and mend things with this team?
I think McKinstry is not the right person right now for Uganda Cranes, because they have the quality. But if you see the way they played against South Sudan, if you see the way they played in Chan, I think they're even losing their identity. The short passes, then those attacks, everything, playing, defending as a unit, attacking as a unity, there is something that is missing. And if you look at the Cranes, the Uganda Cranes that played in the AFCON when the Seba was in charge, Sebastian that is, and the Uganda and Jonathan McKinstry, actually some quality has just gone down.
Okay. Thank you very much for coming on, Seth. It was a pleasure to have you.
Thank you for hosting me.
In our final section this week, we are going to look ahead to the Club World Cup, where Al Ahly are going to be Africa's representatives. Malek, you are our resident Egyptian expert, so I'm going to ask you a few questions about Ahly, just so from an African point of view, we can understand who we're getting behind and what is in store for the Red Devils this competition. First of all, can you remind us exactly how and why Ahly are Africa's representatives in the Club World Cup this year?
Well, as you may remember, they're here because of Efsha's last-minute heroic rocket against Malek in the final of the Champions League. So because they won Africa's Cup, they will represent Africa on the world stage, where they will play against El Duhail. They are the Qatari champions. So normally in the Club World Cup, we see the champions of each continent, but also the champion of the host country's league. And they are usually the weakest team in the tournament. And so in Ahly's case, they've been drawn against El Duhail, the Qatari champions. And in my opinion, this gives them a good chance, which we'll talk about later.
Okay, so Ahly are on paper the best that Africa have to offer after defeating Zamalek. You're confident they're going to get past the first round. But what exactly should fans expect from this Ahly team? What is their playing style? What are their key threats? Who are the star men?
They've been a rejuvenated side since the appointment of Pitso Mosimane as head coach in the summer. So with the South African coming in, he's been playing with the 4-2-3-1 formation, and it's done incredibly well in the Champions League, in the league. We've seen Efsha play as the central maestro leading the attacks, and then he has so many attackers, like we've talked about before, that are able to support him in the number 9 row and on the wings. And in defense, they recently signed Badr Benoun, who was Raja Casablanca's captain. That is, in my opinion, one of the most underrated signings of the transfer window. He will be a great addition in shoring up the defense. And on an international level, that is the type of signings they need to be making, because they already won the Champions League, but they signed one of the best players in Africa already. So signings like that should make them a stronger force and try and compete in the Club World Cup, while so many Africans before them have failed miserably.
And who will be leading the line for this Ali team? Who will be the pinnacle of the attack ahead of Afshan? And who will be their main goal threat in the Club World Cup?
So as you may know, Marwan Mohsen has been Ahli's number 9 for many years. We saw him in the Champions League, but they've signed Tahir Mohammed, a youngster from Ismaili. They also signed Walter Braulia, who we talked about earlier, from Laguna. It's expected that Braulia will hopefully make not his debut, but these will be his main chances to start with the team. And hopefully we can get to see him play in what will be a new environment for many of these players, considering that when they last won the Champions League, the likes of Mohamed Aboutreka and those guys are long gone.
Looking back to the past, Mashemeji, of course, has tasted the Club World Cup before. But Africa don't have a particularly encouraging record in the tournament in the past. Can you tell us a little bit about what exactly has gone wrong and why things have gone wrong?
It's really disappointing, because as an African football fan, one of the only ways to assess club success is in the Club World Cup, where they'll be playing against an Asian team or a South American team. And most of the time they end up losing. Last time we saw Esperance lose to El Saad, the Qatari champions. So they were in the same exact situation that Al Ahly were, where they were drawn against the league champions, but they fell. And we've seen this in many years, but one of the teams that has performed the best is Al Ahly. They finished 3rd place, I want to say around 15 years ago. So they do have a history of performing relatively well at this competition. You don't need too many results, it's just 3 wins and you win the whole tournament. But if they do beat El Duhail, they will be faced off against Bayern Munich, which will be a very tough matchup.
That is a match to get excited about. Well, thank you, Malek. That's really great. Anything else you want to add about Ali's prospective Club World Cup campaign?
Manuel Neuer said he remembers facing off against Al Ahly and that they are a strong team. Make of that what you will. Okay, that is all we've got time for this week. Thank you to Malek for your excellent transfer insight. Thank you, everyone, for listening. We hope you've enjoyed the episode, and good luck to Al Ahly as they represent Africa in the Club World Cup.